You know that moment. You're sitting right next to someone you love, maybe on the couch, maybe in the car after a small argument that somehow got bigger. The room is quiet but not peaceful, heavy. You can feel them there, physically close, but emotionally nowhere you can reach. You ask one more question, softly. Are we okay? And they say, I'm fine. But you can feel it. They're gone. Still in the room, still in the relationship, but gone. And your mind starts talking. Why does this keep happening? Why do I feel alone when I'm with them? Am I asking for too much? Do they love me and just not know how to show it? Or am I trying to hold on to something that's already slipping? Here's the truth most people never hear. The distance isn't always because someone doesn't care. Sometimes the distance is exactly how they protect themselves when caring starts to feel too vulnerable. So no, you're not crazy. And no, this does not automatically mean you chose the wrong person. You are not failing at love. If you've ever been with someone who pulls away the moment things get real, or if you're starting to realize you might be that person, this video will help you see the pattern clearly. You're going to understand what avoidant attachment actually looks like, what's happening beneath the surface, and how to stop confusing self-protection with emotional strength. Let's get into it. The mindset reframe. Most couples believe distance means disinterest. Most couples think if someone wants love, they'll naturally move closer to it. But the real truth is, your nervous system can experience closeness and danger at the exact same time. That's the part people miss. Avoidant attachment is not just someone who hates commitment. It's usually someone whose system learned very early that depending on other people didn't feel safe, didn't feel reliable, or came with some kind of emotional cost. So now, as an adult, the moment intimacy asks for openness, need, softness, or emotional presence, something inside them braces. Not because they're heartless, because they're adapted. And here's what changes everything. What looks like coldness is often overwhelm. What looks like indifference is often self-protection. What looks like, I don't need anyone, is usually a nervous system that decided a long time ago that needing people was risky. Most couples try to solve this by pushing harder. More talks, more pressure, more, tell me what you're feeling. But here's what nobody explains. When safety leaves a relationship, love does not always disappear. Sometimes it just goes underground. It goes quiet. It gets hidden behind logic, busyness, distraction, sarcasm, independence, or withdrawal. And if you don't understand that, you misread everything. You think the problem is lack of love, when the deeper problem is lack of emotional safety. So as we go through these signs, don't listen for labels. Listen for patterns. Listen for protection. Because once you can see the pattern, you stop taking every withdrawal personally. And that's where real repair starts. 1. Closeness starts feeling like pressure. Most couples assume intimacy should always feel good. But for someone with an avoidant attachment style, the moment connection starts getting deeper, their system can begin reading it as pressure instead of safety. That's the deeper truth. They may genuinely want love. They may enjoy you. They may miss you. But when emotional closeness begins asking for consistency, vulnerability, or dependence, Their nervous system can react like a smoke detector, too sensitive, too fast. It cannot always tell the difference between love and losing control. So the pattern looks confusing. At first, they're warm, present, open enough. Then things get more serious, and suddenly they seem restless, irritated, distant, or weirdly hard to reach. Most people in relationships think, "We got closer, so why do they feel farther away?" But beneath the surface, they feel, "This is getting real. What if I can't breathe in this?" The disconnecting version sounds like this. You say, "I just want to feel closer to you lately." They say, "Why does everything have to be so serious?" The connecting version sounds like this. You say, "I just want to feel closer to you lately." They say, "Part of me wants that too. I just notice I get overwhelmed when I feel pressure, and I'm trying to understand that instead of shutting down." That changes the whole room. Because now the distance is named, not acted out. And when you do that, the walls between you start to come down without either of you having to force a breakthrough. 2. They treat needing people like weakness. Here's the part no one talks about. Most couples think independence is always maturity. But in avoidant attachment, extreme self-reliance is often not strength. It's armor. That armor usually formed for a reason. Somewhere along the way, this person learned that emotional needs would not be met cleanly. Maybe they were ignored. Maybe they were shamed. Maybe vulnerability got met with inconsistency, criticism, or emotional absence. So now they build an identity around not needing much at all. Not softness, not reliance, not mutual dependence, but control, distance, self-containment. And here's what nobody explains. This isn't a communication hack. This is an identity structure. They don't just avoid asking for help. They often feel safer believing they shouldn't need it in the first place. So most couples miss the sign. They say they're just really independent. But what's often moving beneath the surface is, if I need you, you can hurt me. Or even, if I need you and you don't show up, I will fall apart. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You ask, "Why didn't you tell me you were having a hard week?" They shrug and say, "Because it's my problem. I'll handle it." The connecting version sounds like this. You ask, "Why didn't you tell me you were having a hard week?" They say, "Honestly, I'm not used to sharing when I'm struggling. My first instinct is always to deal with it alone. But I know that creates distance." That sentence is huge. Because now they are not performing invulnerability. They are telling the truth about it. And that's the shift that turns a relationship that feels like a negotiation into one that feels like a refuge. 3. They go quiet exactly when it matters most. This is where it gets really interesting. Most couples think silence means someone doesn't care enough to engage. But with avoidant attachment, silence is often what happens when someone cares and feels overwhelmed at the same time. Their system deactivates. That's the language attachment science uses. When emotions get too intense, they suppress, minimize, detach, or go flat so they can regain a sense of control. Not because nothing is happening inside, because too much is happening inside. So during conflict, they can look calm, But calm is not always regulated. Sometimes calm is shut down. Sometimes calm is, if I say one more thing, I'm going to feel trapped, exposed, or swallowed by this. Most couples read that silence as rejection, and honestly, sometimes it feels exactly like rejection. You're talking, reaching, hurting, and the other person looks emotionally unavailable in real time. Their face changes, their energy leaves, and your brain starts saying, I'm alone again. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You say, can we please talk about what happened last night? They say, I don't know what you want me to say. Then scroll their phone or leave the room. The connecting version sounds like this. You say, can we please talk about what happened last night? They say, I want to talk, but I can feel myself shutting down. Can I take 20 minutes and come back so I don't disappear on you? Bro, that is a completely different experience. Because one creates abandonment, the other creates structure. And when you do that, your partner stops feeling like a problem to manage and starts feeling like a person trying to stay present through something hard. 4. They downplay feelings and overvalue logic. Most couples think being the rational one is a virtue in conflict. But sometimes what looks like logic is just emotional distance in a nicer outfit. Avoidant people often learned to survive by moving up into the head. Analysis, solutions, facts, timing, technicalities, anything except the vulnerable emotional center of the moment. Because emotions feel messy, needs feel dangerous, tenderness feels exposing. So they stay smart, articulate, and impossible to emotionally reach. Not honesty, not clarity, not grounded perspective, but intellectual escape. And you can feel that when you're with them. You're talking about how hurt you felt, and they respond with a timeline, a defense, or a debate. Most people in relationships hear that and think, why are you trying to win? But beneath the surface, their system may be saying, if we stay in feelings, I'm going to drown. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You say, when you pulled away after that argument, I felt abandoned. They say, that's not what happened. You're exaggerating. I was just tired. The connecting version sounds like this. You say, when you pulled away after that argument, I felt abandoned. They say, I can hear that. Even if that wasn't my intention, I can see how my distance landed that way. That's not weakness. That's emotional availability. And here's the unspoken inner shift. Your partner's brain quietly registers, he actually heard me this time. Or, she didn't make me prove my pain. That moment matters more than most couples realize. Because that's when a relationship stops feeling like a courtroom and starts feeling real. 5. They send mixed signals about commitment. And this is the one most couples never figure out. Most people think commitment fear always looks loud. Cold feet, ghosting, refusing labels. But avoidant attachment often shows up in subtler cycles. They move closer, then they pull back. They say they want connection, then act withdrawn when connection is available. That push-pull pattern is exhausting, but it makes sense when you understand the nervous system beneath it. Part of them wants love. Part of them associates love with engulfment, disappointment, or loss of self. So they reach for closeness, feel exposed, then create distance to regulate. Not because their feelings were fake, because intimacy activated old patterns. Most couples personalize the inconsistency. They think, if I mattered enough, they'd be sure. But what's often happening inside the avoidant partner is more like, I do care. That's exactly why this feels so dangerous. The disconnecting version sounds like this. One week they're planning a trip with you, opening up, talking future. The next week they're hard to read, slow to reply, vague, and acting like you're asking for too much. The connecting version sounds like this. They say, I notice I do this thing where I move toward you, then get scared and pull back. It's not because my feelings disappear, it's because closeness wakes up old defenses in me. Man, that kind of honesty changes everything. Because confusion is painful, but clarity is workable. And when that truth is spoken out loud, the scar tissue between you stops thickening in silence. 6. They need space, but don't know how to ask for it safely. Here's the thing, needing space is not the problem. Everyone needs space sometimes. The problem is when space gets used as emotional escape instead of honest regulation. Most couples get stuck here. One partner asks for closeness. The avoidant partner feels overwhelmed. But instead of saying, I need a little room and I will come back, they vanish emotionally, go cold, get busy, or act irritated that closeness was needed at all. That creates a brutal cycle. Because space without reassurance feels like punishment. Space without return feels like abandonment. And now the other partner reaches harder, which makes the avoidant partner feel even more trapped. But here's what changes everything. Secure space is different from avoidant distance. Secure space says, I'm still here. Avoidant distance says nothing and leaves the other person alone with the meaning. The disconnecting version sounds like this. I can't do this right now. Then hours of silence, short replies, and a weird emotional freeze. The connecting version sounds like this. I'm overloaded, and I need an hour to settle my nervous system. I'm not leaving this conversation. I'll come back at 6, and I want us to finish it. Read that again. That is not a trick. That is emotional maturity. And the internal monologue this creates in the other partner is powerful. He's not disappearing. She's not punishing me. We're okay, even in the pause. That is how safety gets rebuilt in real time. And that's when a relationship stops feeling fragile and starts becoming resilient. 7. They struggle to let you matter too much. This one runs deep. Most couples think the goal of love is just closeness, but the deeper truth is that real intimacy means letting another person actually affect you. That is terrifying for avoidant attachment. Because if you matter too much, you gain power. Power to disappoint them. Power to reject them. Power to see parts of them they've worked very hard to keep hidden. So instead of saying, you matter to me and that scares me, they often protect themselves by acting detached, self-sufficient, or unimpressed. Sometimes they even devalue the relationship a little. They focus on flaws, they compare, they fantasize about more freedom. They tell themselves they're better when no one needs anything from them. Most people in relationships just hear, they're emotionally unavailable. But the deeper signal is often, I am trying not to feel how much I could lose here. The disconnecting version sounds like this. You share something tender, and they make a joke, change the subject, or act like it's not a big deal. The connecting version sounds like this. You share something tender, and they say, part of me wants to deflect right now, but I know that's what I do when something matters. so I'm staying. That is huge. Because intimacy is not built in the big moments. It's built in the 30-second ones, when someone normally leaves, but chooses presence instead. And when you do that, love stops feeling like a threat to survive and starts feeling like a place to land. 8. They mistake emotional distance for stability. This is the final piece, and honestly, it might be the most important one. Most couples think if there's no drama, things must be fine. But emotional flatness is not the same thing as peace. Avoidant attachment can make numbness feel safe. No conflict, no mess, no intense need, no vulnerability. Just enough connection to keep the relationship going, but not enough openness to make it deeply alive. And because that feels less risky, they may confuse it with being stable. But real connection asks for more. Not chaos, not constant processing, not emotional intensity for its own sake, but warmth, accessibility, turning toward, repair. That's the difference. A quiet relationship can be secure, but it can also be two people slowly drifting while calling it maturity. And beneath the surface, one partner often feels lonely in ways they can barely explain. The disconnecting version sounds like this. We never fight, so I don't see the issue.